One thing you learn very quickly in a town like Stirling is that we have no shortage of strange tales. You have the ghosts of kings, cutpurses and commoners squishing out their ectoplasmic ears left, right and centre. One thing we are short of, though, and don't I know it as a single spook, is female phantoms. And the ones we do have, for some curious reason, probably fashion, are colour coordinated. There's a black lady, a ghostly nun, who prowls the line of the ancient borough wall, the back walk, as we call that leafy pathway today, seeking furtive midnight union with her lover, a local priest. Dirty girl. So steeped in sin and shame is she, they say, that those who look but once into her cold, clear eyes are destined never more to see the dawn. Then there's a blue lady, a murdered mistress to King James IV, who prophesied his bloody end in battle on Flodden Field and was put to the sword on the king's command, lest she tell others of her prophecy and encourage his men to mutiny before the day of battle, and whose gaze brings death before the dawn to mortal man. There's a white lady, a murdered widow of St. Mary's Wynd, whose gaze... There's a theme here. Then there's a brown lady, the pink lady, the green lady, the black lady. All in all, it's like a supernatural version of the Spice Girls, except they're all scary. The most famous in this kirkyard, though, without a doubt, is the pink lady, though there's disagreement to this very day as to the nature of her tale. Some will tell you that hers is an ancient story, and she was a pretty young noblewoman of the royal borough, betrothed to one of the brave Scots knights who helped defend Stirling Castle from the English siege of that place in 1304, at the height of our war of independence from our sometimes quarrelsome southern cousins. Sad to relate, the poor girl's lover starved, like so many within those walls, during the bitter siege of that campaign, and she herself perished on the church steps of the Holy Rood of a broken heart on the very day they should have been wed. It's said her spirit wanders each night between the kirk and the castle until the sounding of the last trump on Judgment Day, when the lover's souls shall be entwined in paradise once more. That's what I call a long engagement. Others, though, tell a different tale. Oh, they link the Pink Lady's legend to local events, but of a much more recent vintage, and to a particular stone at the foot of the Lady's Hill. It's a pretty thing, but misleading. It bears a date, 1823, and any fool who's looked at it can tell the stone is at least a century older than that. At the start of the year marked, it was already a long-forgotten thing, toppled over, overgrown and neglected in a secluded nook of the graveyard. But in that year, it was raised up, the date inscribed upon it, and placed where it now stands in honour of a local lady named Mary Witherspoon. Now, she was a poor old widow woman, born, bred and died in Broad Street, just a stone's throw from the graveyard. She had no wealth, no power, no fame. In fact, Mistress Witherspoon has but one distinction in this world, and it is one I feel certain that none of you would envy. She is the only known victim in our town's history of the Resurrection Man. Those grim and greedy, ghoulish grave robbers who would steal away the flesh of the newly dead and buried to sell for silver coin to surgeons and anatomists, to be studied, sliced and diced upon their dissecting slabs. Now, the doctors claimed to be acting for the common good. They broke the law, of course, they admitted that much, but how else could they advance their knowledge and benefit the lot of all mankind? Sure, in their eyes, if in no others, they were on the side of the angels. Small comfort to the families of their victims, who felt that by their desecration of dead flesh, they were depriving those poor souls of any possibility of resurrection. But how could a body rise up to meet its maker upon the sounding of the last trump on Judgment Day if it had first been subject to a butcher's bloody blade? Still, it was a profitable trade. Why, even in the year marked, a fine specimen like yourselves might command a price of £10. In some cases out there, 20 pence on a Mars bar. Dame Nature can be a cruel mistress. So how much was paid for the widow's flesh? Ah, my friends, but that's a mystery, and likely to remain so too. The open grave, the pit, that was discovered almost immediately. Within hours, the grave robbers, Mitchell and McNabb, had been arrested in a local tavern as they sought to sell the old woman's wedding ring. Only one man involved in this outrage escaped judgment, though his name was known to all. Robert Forrest was his name, a medical student, son of Stirling's most distinguished surgeon, nephew too of the borough provost. Some cynical souls claimed it was his family's wealth and political power that kept him free from punishment. You'd never see that happening today, I'm sure. Give him a chance, they said, to pack a bag and flee to the coast, to seek swift passage to Canada. And there he stayed as an army doctor for a great many years. But my friends, in his absence, the people of Stirling grew superstitious, sentimental, fearful, if I'm honest, that with no place to call her own in this world or the next, the widow's wraith would rise by night to torment the locals with her terrible cries. So in seeking to placate that unquiet spirit, they found the finest old stone they could. They had it carved with the date of her death and placed it where it now stands at the foot of the Lady's Hill, a silent sentinel over an empty grave. And it said, on autumn evenings, the sound of weeping can be heard from the branches and boughs of the surrounding woodland, as though down through the ages of night she cries out in vain to be reunited with her long-forsaken mortal form. Not tonight, obviously. But before we leave the widow's sorry tale behind us, my friends, take the chance, if you can, to visit the kirkyard, to seek out her stone, and there you'll see a most particular figure, a familiar form, skull-headed, carved upon the stone, wrapped in a funeral shroud, a gravedigger's staff and spade in each hand. Beneath it, a richly attired female figure being forced into the deep, dark earth. And the message there is clear enough. However high and mighty we might think ourselves to be, rich or poor, prince or pauper, death is the one great democrat who makes equals of every one of us. And my friends, there's an unintended irony to that pretty picture. For unlike the poor biddy pictured there, the problem with our own particular Pink Lady was not, it seems, in getting her to the grave. The big trouble was keeping her there. We love irony. Now, where was I?